So I think we'll go ahead. We've got a few more people that have joined us. Again, we want to welcome you to the Stinson ITS Tapco webinar on LegendViz Traffic Sign Technology. This is our number 14th webinar that we've done, and we're currently doing them every 2 months, and we're really grateful that you've joined us today. My name's Olivia. I will be your Stinson ITS presenter today. I'm the Business Development Manager at Stinson ITS, and my Tapco partner presenter is Nick Schmidling that's joining us today from the USA. Our partner expert has been with Tapco for several years, and you may have seen him at various conferences. And we're super excited to be able to talk to you about the Tapco systems today. So a little bit about ITS. I'll breeze over this because if you've joined our webinars before, you might have heard of us. Stinson ITS is a division of our parent company, Stinson Allight, which is a Canadian-owned company and is based in Ontario and has been operating for 55 years. We currently now have more than 100 employees. 12 of those are the Stinson ITS division, and we do everything from design consulting, product supply, project management, system integration, and ongoing maintenance.
Awesome. A little bit of background and overview of Tapco. So Tapco is very similar to Stinson, and that's why we've had this wonderful relationship. Tapco has been in operation for 65 years, privately owned family company, second and third generation ownership. And really at the core of our mission is our service capabilities, our expertise, innovation, and quality. So today we'll obviously be touching on our new innovation that we brought to market. And with our mission statement, the goal is to leverage these core strengths to improve the safety on your roadways. So that'll be very apparent after reviewing today's new technology and what it seeks to serve to you, then users of these technologies. So our agenda for today, I'll give you a quick overview of LED sign history, where LED technologies have been derived from and how they've been used over the last 2 decades. Olivia will touch on the Humboldt crash review, which from my understanding is a very severe, well-known issue that occurred recently up in your jurisdiction. I'll obviously touch on the LegendViz technology, give you an overview of the project, what value it seeks to provide, touching on the product details, the different options, the variations that you can deploy depending on the application at hand. Olivia will touch on the MUTCD compliance and where this new technology fits in. We'll touch on some in-field installations that we have up and operational here in the United States today, seeking to expand those in-field installations up into your area, Canada, as we're very excited to offer this in your space, and we think it's going to be very successful. I'll give you an overview of third-party testing that we've conducted on this new technology that quantifies the effectiveness of this new enhancement, and we'll wrap it up by giving you a quick overview of our what we call the BlinkerSign offering, which is our LED enhanced sign offering. And then, as Olivia mentioned, we'll open up at the end here for questions, any questions that you may have throughout today's conversation. So as I mentioned, LED enhanced signs have been around for 2 decades, 20 years. But you can see really right in front of you the genesis of LED enhancement or conspicuity enhancement. So you'll see that back in the 1930s, they took an attempt at enhancing the conspicuity or the legibility of signs by actually placing marbles in the sign face of signs. Fast forward to where we are today with the LegendViz technology, we now have a Legend Illuminated traffic sign that complements the traditional perimeter LED signs. So very excited to touch and continue to expand the safety benefits that are afforded with illumination enhancement. Looking at the sign history, Tapco was the first to bring LED enhanced signs, what we call blinker signs, to market back in 2000. And if you look at traditional techniques to enhance conspicuity over there to the right, you'll see that there's various methods that can bring awareness to signs that may not be obvious or in a clear line of sight, such as flags, borders, beacons, etc. But really, LEDs are used to improve the conspicuity, which is a state or quality of being clear, the legibility, which is something we'll touch on many times today in today's conversation, the visibility, which is the ability to be seen or clearly seen, and then contrast, which is the ability to differ strikingly. That's why we have a white text on a red background or a black symbol on a yellow background. And regarding LED enhancement, as I mentioned, this is something that's been around for 2 decades. It's the way we're using LEDs today that we're now refreshing, reinvigorating the value that it can provide. So LEDs have been proven many times over in various studies and reports, both done by agencies and or academia throughout the years. So you'll see some of the statistics there regarding LED enhancement and the safety it provides to wrong way, stop intersections, curve systems, etc. You know, countless times over, it's proven that LEDs do enhance the visibility and the safety, the surrounding safety of a given application or system. And then something that, if you're not aware, would love for you guys to look at, which is called the Crash Modification Factor Clearinghouse. It's a tool that you can leverage to look at some of these studies of these technologies that have been done in the past. So if you're trying to assess what technology or innovation to deploy for a specific problem, the CMF is a great central point that you can access these studies and information to really direct you to the optimal tool to remediate that issue that's at hand. So definitely something you want to keep in your purview as you seek to deploy technologies moving forward. Looks like we have poll question number 1, Sam.
The poll should be showing up for you now. The question is, what LED enhanced traffic safety devices do you currently use in your jurisdiction? So this one, you can click 1 or you can click multiple. We're just curious to see what you're using right now. Just gonna give everyone some time to vote.
Looks like beacons and RRFBs are at the top of the list there. Very nice.
Some people are using the LED enhanced signs and some people aren't using any LED enhanced traffic safety devices.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's a great opportunity for us to discuss the value of these and further expand on why they're definitely a tool you want to consider. All right.
Yeah, for sure. And this really leads in well to the Humboldt crash review that I wanted to include in this and speak of today, just to have a look at sort of Canadian applications and problem areas that I feel has really brought about a greater calling for innovation surrounding static regulatory signs. So a lot of us will know this was a nationally wide renowned crash and tragedy that was, in the news for many, many months. Occurred in Saskatchewan on April 6, 2018. And this particular crash involved a tractor trailer colliding with a bus that killed 16 people and injured 13. And why this was really such a great example of where this calling is because, as you can see in this image, we're looking at a major road that actually intersects with a minor road that's controlled by a static regulatory stop sign with a flashing red beacon above. The review was actually instigated because the year before, there was actually a similar vehicle crash eastbound, again, when someone failed to stop at the flashing red beacon, resulting in 6 fatalities. So within a 2-year period, we were looking at 22 deaths at this particular intersection. Now, driver error was the contributing factor for both collisions, and both of them did occur during the day at an area where a red flashing beacon was. And so in this particular review, which is available for public reading on the Saskatchewan Ministry and Highway website, in section 6.3, it outlined that sun glare was a massive issue at a particular time of day. And despite the fact that the Saskatchewan Highway Ministry did actually meet a lot of the design guidelines for this intersection, there was still a major calling for enhanced street signs because of the failing of humans to actually stop at this particular intersection. So we could see that there was a calling from engineers with enhanced street signs being required. But one little point that I want to just put out there for thought today is that we've had static regulatory street signs for decades that we are very used to. And the question I want to pose today is, how do we expect a static regulatory sign to maintain 100% safety in a constantly changing environment? And we can see that from daylight to nighttime, you know, the changes in the visibility and conspicuity of regulatory static signs. But we also see it with other environmental factors like snow out, you know, brine that gets sprayed on signs, so environmental factors, as well as sun glare at particular times of day.
So to touch on that and to build off Olivia's, you know, thought-invoking question, really some information that we received from LED sign users that we conducted a survey back in 2018, and 45% of provincial and local traffic engineers were seeking improved legend visibility at night. So you'll see down below, and actually you can't see, some of those signs in proximity to the passageway there on the street. So that first image to the left, there's actually a stop sign, and you can see that because the vehicle's headlights have already surpassed that sign phase, it's no longer retroreflective, i.e., you know, providing that awareness and that visibility to that sign. The next one there is a perpendicular application. Think of your do not enter or your wrong way signs, or any sign at that matter that would be perpendicular to that traveled pathway. And I know this is common. A lot of installations are overhead. And once again, those vertical overhead installations on those trombone or mast arms, because the vehicle's headlights are straight ahead, they're not engaging with that sign phase. So you lose that visibility. And one of the things that I want to touch on is that all LED enhanced signs are not equal. That's one of the reasons that Tapco employs what we call variable dimming, because one of the issues that occurs when you drive the LEDs too bright in a certain environment, such as nighttime or daytime, is what's referred to as legend masking. And you can see the issue there is that those permanent LEDs, when they're driven at the improper current, is that they actually start to mask the legend. And you can see it's very hard to actually read and comprehend that sign phase. So an overview of LegendViz technology. It is a strategic technology that's only illuminating the legend at night. And you can see that we're only illuminating the legend. We're not doing full illumination. And I'll expand on that as we continue. As far as the substrate or the material, it's your standard aluminum, highway grade aluminum sign substrate. So alternatives that are out there on the market, those fully illuminated signs, often comprise of polycarbonate, which is a plastic. Not as durable, and we understand that, you know, in your region, durability goes a long way. With this sign, we're able to offer standard 3M DG3 retro reflective sheeting. So there's a new version that we're using, and I'll expand on that coming up here. We're only illuminating the legend at night. So the feedback that we got from the survey from the deployers of technologies is that that's where the optimal, at least for the legend opportunity therein lies, is increasing the legend visibility at night. When we illuminate the legend, to really maximize the legibility or the readability of that sign, we determined that we shouldn't flash the sign. And the reason being is because when the sign is flashing, there's a period in time where the illumination is off. And there brings us back to the current state of static signs, which is signs without legend illumination. So to really maximize the legibility, it's always going to be on steady illuminated when it's operational. We do have different options, and I'll touch on that more coming up here. And then as far as the way to power these signs, we are very excited to configure this and provide this with a 13-watt top-of-pole solar package, which is pictured there. And or if you need greater autonomy in your jurisdiction or region, we can increase the solar package accordingly to other solar configurations. And then obviously an AC option as well.
So speaking to the MUTCD compliance of these signs, as we know, the MUTCD released a new version in June this year. So I wanted to touch on just where these particular signs sit and sort of what the calling is currently. Overall, the MUTCD does acknowledge that this is an evolving area, and it's an evolving piece of technology where there is a continued calling for a lot of research to occur in this particular product portfolio. However, there is support for having LED emitting diodes on the stop sign border, and this is also outlined in area A1.6.7, retroreflectivity, where signs should show the same message and colors under daytime and nighttime conditions, which Tapco adheres to here. And there are several means to provide nighttime visibility, including external and internal illumination. It also speaks in section A1.6.10.1 that LED embedded signs can look at the conspicuity of a static traffic sign and can be increased by embedding LEDs on the sign border, which, as you can see, Tapco have done with the stop and wrong way signs. If we want to look at sort of where these signs sit per se in the MUTCD, we can look at section A1.6.10 of alternative technology signs. And again, it also talks to the fact that newer technologies with the potential to improve traffic sign conspicuity continue to evolve. And that's why we really appreciate that we have Tapco as a partner that's done, incredible research in the USA and has designed a product based on this research and the calling that's coming out in North America as a whole. If we also want to look on a provincial level, and I'm only going to touch on 2 provinces today because we could spend a lot of time on this, but obviously Ontario is already acknowledging that this evolving sign technology is becoming more prominent and that there is a calling for it in this industry. And you can find that in the Ontario MTO Book 5, where it says, with the exception of parking control signs located in illuminated areas, all regulatory signs are required to be reflectorized, which we are in this situation, or internally illuminated. We can also see this in the BC Ministry Manual of Standard Traffic Signs, where again, it speaks to illumination and that could be provided by light within or behind the signs, which illuminates the main message, the background, or both through a translucent material, which again, we meet that standard here.
So to touch on some details, as I mentioned, about actually how we're designing this product, we have a great breakdown of how we illuminate the legend of the sign. So as I mentioned, your standard 0.080 highway grade aluminum sign substrate, what we're doing to allow for that legend illumination is we're perforating the legend. So you'll see the S, the T, the O, the P perforated. Perforated mean punching. And then what we're doing is we're adhering the rear illumination assembly box to the rear of that sign substrate. So obviously that's containing LEDs, and that pass-through illumination is heading out towards the driver. And as I mentioned, we're still proud to offer the 3M DG3 translucent sheeting. We're just using a variant of their sheeting that's referred to as 4090T. The T stands for translucent. So that's what allows that transmissivity of illumination through that sign face. So this is a great overview of the patented design that we are offering here today. Another great piece I want to touch on, and we conducted many assessments with our engineers as to how we want to illuminate this sign. And I think it really resonates here with the pictures in front of you, is how this sign appears both nighttime and daytime. So we explored roughly 10 different ways to illuminate the legend of a sign. Some that actually change the color of the sign depending on how we illuminate it. And obviously, Olivia just touched on, what that means in terms of compliance or the lack thereof. One of the things that I think is very valuable in the strategic legend illumination is if I didn't tell you that that sign there on the right was a LegendViz sign, or if you didn't see the solar panel above it and you kind of tied the 2 and 2 together, it looks like a standard traffic sign, and that's the value. And the reason that's extremely valuable is if and when there ever was a failure on the roadway, either from an impact, a power out, etc., what you still have at the end of the day is a standard traffic sign, the standard retro reflectivity that is still operational. Obviously, now at nighttime, if this is still operational, the device illuminates, the legend is very clear, very specific, and you can see that on the left there where you have a LegendViz sign over a standard traffic sign, the wrong way sign. You can see how much that legend illumination pops, but that standard traffic sign in its default mode is extremely valuable because it offers that extra reassurance to the end users. So as far as the portfolio, it's what you have here in front of you that we can offer with the LegendViz technology, which is a 30-inch stop, 2 options. We call it the LegendViz Traffic Sign there pictured on the left, which has no perimeter LEDs, and then the LegendViz BlinkerSign. When we say blinker, we refer to the perimeter LEDs. So you have your 30-inch stop, you have a 42 by 30 wrong way, and then you have a 30 do not enter. So these are the LegendViz portfolio that we're able to offer today, but definitely looking to expand this portfolio as we continue to expand the LegendViz technology to many sign faces.
Yeah, and in speaking to that, we're really open to hearing from engineers or city employees as to, you know, where you feel a calling is on, you know, LED embedded technology, and what particular signs you would be wanting to see something like this technology utilized on.
Definitely. So what I wanted to do here is paint a really clear picture as to the way the 2 sign variations, the traffic sign and the blinker sign, either differentiate or maximize different scenarios. So on the left with the traffic sign, you can see the illumination. As I mentioned, it's steady illuminated. It's white illumination, the legend. It's offset legible, so your perpendicular installations where you can read it from an offset angle. It's readable at 90 meters and it's visible at 150 meters. So readable and visibility are different, right? Visibility is seeing something. Readability is the ability to actually read what you're seeing. So think of your LegendViz traffic sign as those applications that are, let's just say, in close proximity or where you're just trying to enhance the legibility of a sign face. Now, the sign there on the right, the LegendViz blinker sign variation, I think this is a great opportunity to you know, consider for those Humboldt type applications, those rural countrysides. The reason being is you have the perimeter LEDs. Those perimeter LEDs are visible for up to 1.6 to 3.2 kilometers at night. So what this provides is a motorist, as they're approaching that intersection, they can see at great distances those red LEDs. As they embark and approach that intersection, they can now see the sign, the legend illumination, and actually read and comprehend that sign. In this instance, the stop sign, right? So really you have dual sources of illumination that complement one another or can be very specific depending on what variation you deploy at what application or location.
So we have poll question 2, which will pop up here for you.
Question is, what application do you believe the LegendViz technology will be most valuable? I'll just let people vote, and then I'll show the results.
Amazing. So we can see 67% in problematic locations and 33% in low ambient light conditions.
So to further expand on the legend illumination technology, I want to make a very clear distinction as far as what it's capable of and what it's not, it's incapable or not intended for. So as I mentioned, not illuminating during the daytime. We're not designing this technology to overpower your ambient daytime light. As I mentioned, we're not flashing the legend illumination because its goal is to increase the legibility. And if we flash once again, there's a time where the legend is off. It's not designed to overpower the headlight light from a vehicle. So this is for when a vehicle's headlights are not on the sign face. So those instances where the headlights have already surpassed or those perpendicular overhead installations. And we don't dim the legend like we do with the perimeter LEDs. We keep that at a static drive current. So what that means is when it's always on at the same level. So you don't have to worry about it's offset for the time of night or it's not bright enough for whatever specific reason. When it's on, it's always on at the same level. So as far as what it's capable of, it's 6500K LEDs, so very crisp, cool. The reason that's very noteworthy is we tried what's sometimes referred to as a cooler light technology, which was a little bit more yellow. And obviously that starts to detract from the colors of that sign face. So per the MUTCD, you have to keep the original sign colors the same as a standard traffic sign. So that was a very specific and strategic selection. The distances that I already mentioned, the offset legibility. Really what I want to touch on here is the environmental ruggedness. So that enclosure that's on the rear of the sign, it is environmentally sealed with a gasket, and it's got a breathing chamber that allows for any moisture that may have entered that package on the back to actually dispel throughout that device, so it doesn't back up there. So that's a great design approach. And then also it's designed to operate for temperatures ranging from -40°C to 50°C. So as we designed this, we made it very clear and it was front and center that this needs to be a rugged, durable design that can last for a long time span. And following that same approach, it is designed to last upwards of 10+ years, 50,000 hours. So we're very confident that this is going to be able to withstand the rugged environment of the Canadian applications. So as I previously mentioned, but to kind of see here in front of you, one of the things that I also wanted to expand on was the illumination options. So as I mentioned, if you opt in for the LegendViz blinker sign, which is pictured there in front of you flashing, you have the opportunity to really select and control with those the Legend or the Premier LED illumination sources, either independently, separate of one another, or congruently or in unison. So what I mean by that is, if you do pair this with a third-party sensor such as radar, thermal, etc., is you can turn on certain facets of the illumination at different times. So let's say the Legend is on at night, comes on every night, dusk till dawn. But when a vehicle is detected, like at the Humboldt intersection, via a third-party sensor, you can activate the Premier LEDs. Or you can say, hey, I want both to come on at the same time at night. So you have a lot of options to mix and match because they're independently controllable and or can be complemented for a given application. So really excited about this.
And as you can see here, we've provided a graphic about that shows the Tapco intersection conflict warning system that we do also sell with other Tapco blinker signs. But this really speaks to the same problematic scenario that we witnessed with Humboldt of a major road intersecting with a minor road, and really highlights the technological advancements that we now have with producing not only LED embedded signs with illumination, but also being able to combine them with an intelligent conflict warning system that can activate on approach of detecting a vehicle. So this can be combined not just with a sole LegendViz blinker stop sign. There are other Tapco blinker signs that can be utilized to provide advanced warning of a intersection up ahead.
Yeah, a lot of details on this slide, and I'll keep it very brief. We designed a really simplified mounting system for the sign. And what I mean by that is we designed it in a way that one person can install this sign. So what you do is actually mount the bracket to the pole, any pole type. So it could be a round post, it could be a square tail spar, it could be a square wood post, etc. You mount that bracket, that upper right image, and then what you actually do is you place the bolts that are adhered to the rear of that illumination assembly box through the key slots, pull it down, tighten those down, fasten them, and you're ready to go. So really excited for any installers or contractors that may be on the call or viewing this information. Super easy, super quick, and one person installable. So this image here is to really kind of get the juices flowing, different thoughts, different scenarios of how to deploy the LegendViz technology. So, the Humboldt application is what I'd say is pictured there in the far left, the two columns, where you have either a stop ahead scenario or a rural or urban situation where you have that distance where you're approaching an intersection. And then the two on the right are your wrong way applications, or the perpendicular and offset. So this is where the vehicle's headlights just simply do not engage with that sign face. So you can see the differing ways, the different sign configurations, whether it be the traffic sign or the blinker sign, and how they can be leveraged for various applications depending on where that sign resides on the roadway.
So we pull question number 3 here that will pop up on your screen.
So we'd like to know, so right now it's just the LegendViz is only available in a few signs, but what additional MUTCD legends would you like Tapco to add to this assortment?
Curve warning, pedestrian crossings, we're seeing a 50% tally, over height. So we see 43% for pedestrian crossing, 29% for the curve warning, and 29% for over height. Thank you for the feedback.
So now we have some images here of the sign actually being deployed in the field. And I think this will be great for viewing purposes of the sign in operation. So on the left is that perpendicular offset installation that I was referencing, where the vehicle's headlights have already surpassed the sign face. You can see it's rather hard to actually read and comprehend that sign. You have a do not enter sign stacked on top of a wrong way. And now after with the LegendViz technology there pictured on the right, you can see it from an offset. So very clearly you can see that sign that's illuminated. You can see do not enter. And once again, that's over a standard static wrong way sign. So it's a great landscape image of that offset legibility of these signs. Here's another image from a different angle, this time of that do not enter sign from across the intersection, now looking, let's say, to your left here at that intersection. So just another great shot of that sign in operation. Here's a stop sign that we deployed in Nevada. This is the LegendViz blinker sign. You can see that we have some nearby ambient light, which sometimes can actually impede the legibility of sign faces. But you can see the very balanced perimeter LEDs with that legend illumination, very clearly notating that you have a stop sign there. And once again, you can see the vehicle's headlights surpassing the sign face, but that's the value of the LegendViz, is that optimized and very clear, crisp legend illumination. So as far as where we have these signs deployed, Olivia mentioned that we've been conducting some extensive work to get these out into the users' hands, and we want to replicate what we have pictured here in the U.S. with you guys up in Canada. I hope the goal of today's conversation is you guys to better understand the technology and pose your interest to the Stinson team and work with Stinson and Tapco to make this map for Canada just as green. So you can see that we have these signs deployed in many states. A lot of great feedback. I'll touch on that coming up here, some preliminary feedback from Wisconsin DOT, but nonetheless, very excited to expand this upwards. So one of the things that we wanted to do with a new sign is we knew that it was rather disruptive. It was a new technology that was building upon a common tool that's used today, signage, right? So we knew that we had to really validate and quantify the effectiveness of this new technology. So what we did is we partnered with Texas A&M Transportation Institute, sometimes referred to as TTI, based out of Texas, down here in the United States. And what we had them do is actually study the legibility of a standard traffic sign, a standard blinker sign, and then the LegendViz blinker sign. And you can see that pictured there at the right. You'll actually notice that we actually misspelled some signs, and we did that on purpose because one of the things that TTI has recognized in their many years of traffic sign studies is that users, participants, they'll see a red octagon and they'll associate that red octagon with a stop sign. So to really quantify and validate the participants' ability to actually read and comprehend that sign, we actually chose to misspell some signs so we can confirm that, yes, they actually could read it. So what they did is actually drive a 2,000-acre course with these signs configured in different applications, different settings, and they actually documented the point at which the participant, the driver, could actually read the given sign face. And the results were great. So we saw a 2x or 100% increase in offset and angular sign compared to standard traffic sign techniques. So this is your wrong way or your do not enter sign or any sign that's offset. And then for straight on, thinking of your stop sign scenario, we saw legibility distances increase in the straight on scenario over standard blinker signs. So what we saw is really in both instances, straight on or offset, is that the LegendViz technology enhanced the legibility of the sign face. And then there's also a qualitative question for all the participants, the 30 participants, as to what sign of the three they felt optimized the legibility for their viewing purposes. And really 3 to 1 responded that they preferred the LegendViz for seeing the sign text over standard traffic signs. So a great qualitative piece of feedback from the subjects or the participants of the study. And then here are some great results from a field study that we did with Wisconsin DOT. So this is something, like I said, that we'd love to replicate with you guys. Is we had 2 locations here with WISDOT where we installed the new sign where they had traditional static signs. You can see the number of wrong way events that occurred previously. At location 1, they had a wrong way event every 37 days, and at location 2, they had a wrong way event every 24 days. And this was with standard static signs. After we added the LegendViz signs, we saw location 1, 99 days without a wrong way event, and then location 2, 61 days without a wrong way event. So you can see that the time span between events actually increased, which is great because it shows that drivers are becoming more aware of these signs and these contentious behaviors. And I think this is one of the last slides here. This is an overview of the LED enhanced sign portfolio that Olivia and I had mentioned. Our traditional blinker sign, which from my understanding, some of you guys are using today, which is great. Then we have the new 13-watt Tapco, which is that solar package pictured there in the middle, which really increases the autonomy for those solar configurations. And then obviously we touched on the LegendViz blinker sign vastly here today. And we have those 2 options, the traffic sign and the blinker sign option. So nonetheless, as the investment increases, the safety effectiveness also increases. So depending on your application, we can right size and suggest and consult you with the proper sign selection.
So this brings us to our final quiz for today. The winner of this quiz question will win a Stinson ITS gift pack, and that will be shipped to them. So please use the questions window to answer, and the first person to answer correctly will win the pack. Sam will read out the winner after approximately 20 seconds. So what is the difference between a LegendViz traffic sign and a LegendViz blinker sign?
Olivia, one more time for the options.
A, the illuminated LegendViz sign flashes. The illuminated LegendViz sign has a perimeter LEDs which flash, and the illuminated LegendViz sign is so bright it makes a driver's eyes blink. Whoops.
It looks like we do have a correct answer already. So Wyatt said B, the illuminated LegendViz sign has perimeter LEDs which flash. That is correct. So we will contact you afterwards to get your shipping address.
Awesome, congratulations, Wyatt. And so now that brings us to our questions section. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat if you haven't done so already, and we'd be happy to answer any that you have.
There are a few questions already in there. So Brian asked, is the Ontario Traffic Manual series being updated to allow LED illumination?
Yeah, to be honest, I can't answer that directly. I mean, what we have seen is that illumination has been spoken to. But yeah, I'm happy to have a look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, and to complement that, like I said, the goal of today's conversation is to provide some awareness and overview of the technology, and we understand that this is new. So some of the language that may exist is based on old or traditional technologies. So we may be ahead of some of the language that exists. So that's our goal today, is to understand where we can support you in making sure that this gets written into the proper documents as to how to use this new technology to enhance the safety.
Yeah, but in speaking to that, we are seeing it being acknowledged on a federal level, that this is being allowed, on a federal standard LEDs to be utilized in stop signs and yield signs at this point in time. And we are looking to work with the Transportation Association of Canada to sort of investigate the utilization of LED embedded technology into additional signs, which obviously Tapco have produced already because of research that's come out of the US. We do recognize, however, that every province is going to have their own standards and mandates, which is also why I included, specific things around Ontario and BC. And of course, this is a space that we see evolving, and we're really excited if anyone's open to work with us on pilot projects to sort of bring some attention to the advancements in this technology and the benefits that can come from their deployment.
Someone mentioned that they were hoping to see speed limit as well as school zone and pedestrian signs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
We really see a calling in that too, for sure.
Great feedback.
Someone asked, what happens when the temperature drops below -40 degrees Celsius?
Yes, that's a good question, Andrew. So when we design and test these signs, we stress test them well below our specified numbers. So we've actually tested these signs below the -40°C, and there's no explicit black and white, dropout in power or performance, etc. One of the values of being based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin is we too experience weather temperatures below that threshold as well. And I can tell you that the device still operates. Now, that 40°C threshold is our conservative number, where we're comfortable in notating that to the users. So it's not like it's going to reach -41°C and it's going to fail immediately, right? So I'm confident that you'll still have success.
Sherry asks, what is the warranty for the LegendViz sign?
Yeah, good question. So the warranty for the LegendViz signs is a 3-5-10. So 3 years for the battery, 5 years for the product workmanship, and then 10 years for the solar panel. So obviously, if you have an AC configuration, the 3 and the 10 fall off, but nonetheless, the product itself, the sign, the product workmanship is warranted for 5 years. Good question.
Another question is, I've seen some alternative designs for illuminated signs, such as fully illuminated signs or blank out signs. Can you expand on why you chose to only illuminate the text symbol of the sign?
Yeah, so one of the things that after reviewing countless pages of studies from TTI and other agencies in the industry is that contrast, once again, the red background with the white legend or a yellow background with the black symbol. That's how the human eye deciphers, identifies, and that's how we can comprehend and read signs. So one of the things that we learned in testing various means of illumination is that by strategically only illuminating the legend, we're able to get that contrast of the legend illumination to pop against the red background that's not illuminated. So what you would see with a fully illuminated sign matrix is that you lose that contrast because the whole sign face is illuminated. Or with blank outs, the issue there is you have obviously just your pixels that are illuminated and you don't have a retro-reflective sign face. So if that blank out sign ever does fail, quite literally you have a black box on the side of the road. If the LegendViz sign were to ever fail, you have a standard traffic sign that resides in a standard state. Great question.
And that leads into a second question. What level of reflectionized sheeting is used on the traffic sign?
Yeah, so it's the DG3. So it's the top tier ASTM XI sheeting as specified by the MUTCD and also noted in the MUTCD-C. So it's 3M's top tier sheeting, their DG3, which stands for the diamond grade cubed.
So we have reached the end of our time.
Okay.
So if there are any additional questions, we will email you to follow up. So feel free to put them in the questions window.
So that takes us to our next webinar, which we're really excited as Stinson ITS to be doing our very first webinar in French. So for those who don't speak French, we're really sorry, but for those in Quebec, we really wanted to bring something to you that we haven't done before. So my colleague, Michel Mondor, will be presenting on Bluetooth and Wi-Fi data collection, partnered with the president of MI8, Mr. DeSantis. So look out for that on October 6th. If you speak French, if you're interested in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi data collection, this is going to be such a great webinar for you to join. So yeah, in short, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. We know you're all busy, and just for joining us today. And we just, as Stinson ITS, are so grateful to be partnered with a company like Tapco that has done tremendous research to be able to bring this technology forth with the greatest level of safety and integrity. So yeah, if you have any questions, please follow up with me. My email's there, or with the ITS sales team. We have a toll-free number that you can call as well to reach our sales team. And again, thank you for joining. We really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.